Welcome back to Windows on the World. We're now going to talk about the political implications of the Manchester terror attack with Piers Corbyn. Piers.
Yes, very interesting things to talk about here. I mean, on Monday, Jeremy was gaining in the opinion polls because of Theresa May's U-turn. And she's now clearly weak and wobbly. And as it continues, Labour are going to win this general election. And the powers that be are really scared. And then this terror attack turned up, and the powers that be are using that to clamp down on debate. A bit like how the Joe Cox tragedy was used during the Brexit debate, to Brexit campaign.
The media response to these is very predictable, isn't it?
It is very predictable, yes. They always wheel in standard people, standard this, and they always seem to be Blairite globalists who turn up on TV fixing the agenda. And, you know, that is very bad because it is suppressing debate. However, you know, nevertheless, there are things that are happening now which, you know, merit discussion, which could turn the debate around. For example, you see, you ask yourself the question, this guy that did this bombing was radicalised, it seems, after a visit to Libya. Well, in Libya, 1,000 times more children have been killed by American bombings than at all the terror attacks that have happened in Europe. So, you know, this Muslim guy goes there, or converted Muslim, and he sees all this and he thinks, well, I don't like that, I'm going to have revenge. So he comes back to the UK and does this stuff. And the point is that bombing begats bombing. And all this stuff in the Middle East, where the Americans have bombed so many people, have led to a backlash of bombing in Britain and Europe. And what we need actually is not warmongering, which is what Theresa May stands for. She's even said she wants a first strike nuclear effort, which is crazy, because if that happens, when the other side sees the bomb coming, they do the same, and you have mutually assured destruction, which is the end of all, basically. But look, back to what Theresa May actually wants. She's a committed warmonger who sells arms to the Saudis, and goes along with American policy, or when American policy is bad under the Clinton regime. Obviously, Trump goes one way or the other. But, you know, bombing begets bombing, whereas Jeremy is a committed peacemonger. And I would say all these meetings they keep popping up with him and the IRA or Hamas or whatever have been totally about peace. And the British government has had secret meetings with all these terror organisations anyway. They had meetings with the IRA, they had meetings with everybody.
This is always conveniently left out, the real political depth of it, of course.
Jeremy's a militant peacemonger, and that is what we need in the world now. And if we can proceed on those lines, we can calm down the madness which comes out of these countries like Libya, which have been crushed.
Yes, I mean, the strategic thing of this is very important, and that's the thing that I think the public needs to know more of, and they're getting more educated into it. Because as these attacks happen, and we see the results of what happens after these attacks, to the rights of people in this country and the political agenda that's being played out, it can only keep going for a certain amount of time. You can't keep doing this stuff infinitely. That's my view.
I agree with that completely. And I think an interesting side effect is that every time this happens, they have more security on the police. And now, instead of having it on the streets, instead of having police, now they're having army. Well, hang on, we're going to have army everywhere, and that happened in France, happened here. Well, this type of thing is, if you like, getting ready for potential civil unrest when people start rising up because of cuts in this, cuts in that, strikes happening, anti-strike laws. You know what I mean?
That's exactly the point.
Could
this
be
was brought in
strong state.
There does seem to be a strategic agenda behind this, because 600 of these, what I call martial law terror clowns, who basically look like stormtroopers, were brought in as part of the Metropolitan Police. Now, they weren't really seen in that many places. There was a big advertising campaign about them, and that's really what it was. They were getting people ready for a martial law situation. So I call my article Martial Law Terror Clowns. And really, that's predicted what's happened, because they've now brought the army in.
Yeah.
And, of course, there is an agenda being played out here, and people need to be quite wise to it now, because it's really about attacking their individual freedoms and controlling the narrative, which is really an intelligence term. What's happening is a controlling of the narrative at a government level.
Yeah, that is true. No, that is completely true. You see, the terrible tragedies in Manchester are, deserve all the sympathy and support and everything, and notice the key role of the NHS in looking after people. I mean, this Tory government wants to privatise the NHS, so in future, will the NHS be as effective when there's more terror
We had a
attacks?
very good show on that yesterday, actually, with an ex-nurse, and we've been talking about that.
But yeah,
and people don't seem to have still quite grasped it, but we simplified it yesterday, so that show's coming out soon about the NHS, and that will tell you what's happening locally and what you can do about it.
Good, yeah. I mean, so we have to give every support we can to these people that are suffering. That is absolutely true. But we don't want to let the powers that be manipulate the situation and make use of that for their own agendas. To one, suppress political debate during an election, and two, to promote strong statism, which will be used against the people now and in the future.
That's right. So we need to stop following this very simplistic, propagandist kind of narrative.
We want peacemongering. We want a peacemonger Prime Minister, Jeremy Corbyn for PM.
I think more and more people are coming around to that, Piers, so thanks very much. And we'll see you soon on Windows on the World.